Hello, hello, and welcome back, besties. If you are new here, we are talking about books today. It has been ages since I have posted a long video about books. I literally did a January reading wrap up the last time I posted, and then I think like a TBR for February, and that's it. I was radio silent for March and April, and it is May 1st today that I am filming this. So my goal is to just get back into it. And I was trying to think if I wanted to just talk about books and talk about my current TBR, and that felt a little too small. Like I want to put out there what I've been reading all these months that I haven't been posting. So I thought, you know what? We are officially 1/3 of the way through 2026. And I thought, what better time than to do a tier ranking of every book I have read so far in 2026. I love watching these videos, and so I am really excited to share this with you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is our tier ranking system. I decided to keep it simple. We are just gonna go through our DNFs and then 1 through 5 stars. And although I do have ratings for these books already posted on Goodreads and Fable, I'm not going to follow what I have posted on those today. I kind of want to do just like a vibe check. So I'm going to go through this list without looking at those ratings I did like the day after I read them. And we're going to go based on vibes from what I remember at this point in the year. I do have above 5 stars. I have the standout section, and we're going to save that for last. So I have the books on my screen here in the order I read them, but I can't see my ratings. So we will stick to what we promised, which is purely vibes. So the first book that I read this year was The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennet. So here we have it. And you know what? I did post about this. I have a very unpopular opinion about this book in that it is way too slow and nothing really happens, and there is no comeuppance at all for some of the characters, and I just felt like all the characters were plot devices and like not actual characters. Oh my gosh, just go watch my short on that, because people get so fired up when they hear that I'm rating this 2 stars for The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennet. It hurts. It hurts. I feel like it should be 3 or higher, but it just wasn't for me. So anyways, we're just starting out with a bang with a really unpopular opinion, but it's got to happen. It has to be said. After The Vanishing Half, I believe this kicked off a little speculative fiction journey of mine, which if I love spec fic, I absolutely adore weird stories. I just love reading something that I could never have come up with on my own, little brain teasers. That's just, oh, I love it. So the next book I read was Chlorine by Jade Song. And this book was weird, like satisfyingly weird. When it started out, it started a little bit not slow, but I was concerned. I was like, I thought this was going to be weird, and it's reading like contemporary fiction. Oh boy, the last 25% or 30% of the book just gets bizarre, and it was exactly what I was hoping for. So I rated this 4 stars. I loved this book. My only caveat is there is some body horror in it, so if you can't handle that, this is not a great book for you to read. All right, after Chlorine, I read The Running Man by Stephen King. Here it is. And this was a book club pick. I think I suggested this to the book club because I had seen the original Running Man, the 1980s one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I knew there was a new movie coming out with that one guy whose name I literally can never remember. Powell. I think I remembered it this time. I don't know his first name, but something Glenn Powell. This is a revelation. I have literally never remembered his name before. I've always had to Google him. Anyways, so with the remake with Glenn Powell coming out, I was like, our book club needs to read this book and then watch the original movie and then watch the new movie. So I read this. This book was so fast paced. I could not put it down once I started. But it did have some plot holes. It had plenty of entertainment value, but there wasn't a lot of like depth to it. So, anyways, for that reason, that is a 3-star book for me. After The Running Man, we went back into our spec fic and we read Private Rites by Julia Armfield. Now, I was really looking forward to this book because I have read Our Wives Under the Sea by this same author, and that was a 4-star book for me. This had so much promise to it. It was like the inside cover talks about maybe some like cult like activities at the end of the world because it just won't stop raining, and so the infrastructure is falling apart because of these floods and all of the water. So I was like, cults in water world, what more could I ask for? But this book did not deliver. It was such a character study of these 3 sisters dealing with childhood trauma and how it has affected their relationship throughout their lives, which, if that's what I thought I was reading, I think I would have liked it. But because that's not what I signed up for, and the other things that I talked about were just like these, like almost like afterthoughts, this is a 2-star book. I'm sorry. I think I might have rated it 3 stars because I was being nice, but based on vibes today, that's a 2-star book. All right. The next book I read was The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. I loved our main character. I loved the setting. I thought it was creepy, and I think it was really well written. I think the second half of the book was the perfect amount of creepy and intense that it really suited me. But I felt like it should have actually been a little bit longer so we could get some more of the slow burn of that possession that is in the title. I felt like things kind of happened really quickly to the point where I was like, wait, this could have been so anticipated. It just all happened too quickly. With that said, this was still a 4-star book. I really loved this book, and I am so excited to read more by this author. We are going to gloss over this next one. I read Sarafina by Philip Fracassi. I got it as an ARC on Netgalley, and I just didn't do my due diligence, so I did end up DNFing this book. So that's all we need to say about that. Following that, I finally read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, which was a highly anticipated read for me because I have seen parts of the movie, and some of my favorite booktubers absolutely love this book. I'm going to do a shout out to the book Leo. I think this was one of her top books of 2025, or actually, it might have been her top book of 2025. And for that reason, I really bumped it up on my TBR, and I read it this year. And you know what? She did not lead me astray. This was a 5-star book. I laid down with it hoping to read like 1 chapter before bed, and before I knew it, I was halfway done with the book and like forcing myself to go to sleep because I had to wake up early the next day. Oh, I was just pressing buttons over here. After Annihilation, I started prioritizing some books by Black authors in honor of Black History Month in February. So I read When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. This is about this plantation that is reenacting plantation life, but it is just gross. It's very racist, very gross. Um, and you have this Black woman returning to her town to go to a wedding on this plantation, and the ghosts of the slaves who were tortured and murdered on this plantation supposedly come to get their reckoning. That is the synopsis of the book, and I just have to say, I don't feel like it delivered what it promised. I felt like the ending was a little bit anticlimactic, so I didn't love this book, but I do think it was well written and had a lot of potential. So, going on vibes, I'm gonna say I liked this book, but I definitely didn't love it, and it wasn't meh. So, yeah, it was a 3-star book. All right, after When the Reckoning Comes, I read a quick book of poems called Morning Leaves by Lang F. Rickers. This was also a Netgalley ARC. Going off of vibes, I liked this. It was pretty good, but it was just kind of like these quick little kind of surface level poems. I don't know, they all tied together into this deeper theme, but it just doesn't stand out. Then, getting back into Black History Month, I finally read Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. Basically, this is about a kind of futuristic magical realism type world where the KKK is a lot more prevalent, and it's about these resistance fighters. And I listened to this on audiobook, and I can say without any doubt that this is the best audiobook I have ever listened to in my life. The narration is so superb. Also, I mean, it helps that the book is also amazing. So you can't have a good audiobook without a good book to work from. So, but everything working together in tandem, this was absolutely a 5-star read. Next, we read The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. You know what? I have to put something in this category. I mean, I don't, but I do. And I didn't DNF this. I kept wanting to DNF this, but I stuck with it. I shouldn't have stuck with it. I'm going to rate it 1 star based on vibes. I'm so sorry. I hate that. I feel rude. We don't need to get into it. I have some videos about why I didn't enjoy it, so you can go look at those. But I just wish I had DNF'd that book because it just never got interesting for me. Moving on, I then read Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, and I really loved this book. I loved our main character so much, and the juxtaposition of her compared to these white people who are trying to interact with her and trying to be anti-racist, but they're like focus on the fact that she is a Black woman just makes them so inherently racist. And then just to see her just like not worried about all the things they are worried about because she has other priorities, it's just is really well done to see that side by side, and how some people can get so wrapped up in this concept of colorblindness, of anti-racism, that it makes them more racist. And I rated it 4 stars. I loved it. After Such a Fun Age, I finished The Last Contract of Isako, which, fun fact, comes out May 4th. This was an arc, and this is basically about corporate samurais in space. You're following this legendary contractor as she's navigating political turmoil. She's trying to figure out what happened to one of her apprentices, and she gets caught up in all of this drama as she's basically being forced to complete one more contract before she retires. So there's a huge element of mystery in here, and then there is some action, there's political intrigue, but it is a little bit slow burn. It's about 550 pages. So if you're one of those people who really loves unique world building and lore and maybe like an epic fantasy type fan, I think this book would be really good for you. You know what? I'm going to bump this up to 4 stars because I did really like it. I think saying 3 stars is not quite enough, but truly this was like a 3.5 stars rounded up for me. I'm going to gloss over Binti just because it's so short. It's like I barely remember it, but I remember liking it, so that's 3 stars. After that, though, I read An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. I picked this up because I love paranormal books, and this is by a Black author for Black History Month. This is not a paranormal book. I did not realize that, but our main character in this, she is bisexual. There are some gender fluid characters in here. She is neurodivergent, so you have this really diverse cast of characters, and basically this is about a spaceship that is separated by race, and the people on the lower levels of this ship are basically slaves and they are brutally treated. So it's a really heavy book, and there's an element of mystery in here. Honestly, the characters really carried this book for me, but the plot didn't have enough tension at some points. So I'm gonna say I liked this. The next book I read was Wolfworm by T. Kingfisher. This was an arc from Netgalley as well. It has come out since then, so you can go read this. And I loved our female character. She works in science in like the late 1800s, and she's just so confident and sure of herself. I just really liked her. And then there was this great atmosphere going on, and then it got really creepy and a lot of body horror and gross, and there's bugs involved, but I loved it. I this was 4 stars. I loved this book. It was just like that perfect amount of creep factor that I want in a horror book. So 4 stars for Wolfworm. The next book I read was The Reformatory by Tananari of Dew, which is about a young black boy who gets sent to this reformatory that is notorious for mistreating especially its black population. There are white boys there too, but the black boys especially are just brutalized. But it doesn't just follow the boy, it follows his family who are trying to address the fact that he got sent there unfairly, but you're following them as they are also facing all of these racial injustices, from little small ones to huge ones, and it's just a really horribly great picture of how racism works to oppress black people in from so many different angles that it just feels hopeless sometimes. And I cried about this book before, and this book just works me up, man. It is, geez, it is a 5-star book. I can't talk about that book without crying. It's really intense. It's really intense. It's one of those books that, like, you're glad you read it, but Lord, getting through that book, it was not easy. So, collect ourselves and move on to The Caretaker by Marcus Cleaver, who I literally kept saying as Max Cleaver when I posted about this book. It's Marcus Cleaver. This is a weirdo thriller where this woman goes to take care of this house, and the previous owners, or I guess the owners, tell her that she has to follow the rites, or basically the apocalypse will happen. And you're left wondering, is the owner like delusional or is it real? And then, of course, as this main character gets wrapped up in everything that's going on, you start to wonder, is she delusional? Like, is any of this actually happening? And there is some allegory in there for depression and struggling to get out of a black pit. You know, you're just like scrabbling to get out of poverty, out of depression. And it's just like at every turn, you just keep facing obstacles, and some things are just out of your control, and how that all works to just really beat you down. So the allegory in this is great, but this book got really repetitive for me. It didn't touch on the weirdness as much as I wanted to. We're gonna go ahead and say this is kind of like a 2.5 rounded up to 3. Yeah, that suits it. That fits. All right, after Black History Month, and reading a lot of heavy books like The Reformatory and An Unkindness of Ghosts and When the Reckoning Comes, I needed a palate cleanser, which is very white privileged of me for sure. But I decided to read Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett because I love the Emily Wilde series. I really think those books are just so cozy and cute, and I'm usually not a big fan of cozy. So the fact that I like them says something, I think, about this author. So when I saw that she had a new book coming out, I was really excited to read it, and it was just what I needed. It was cute and cozy, and I appreciate that it's a standalone, but I do feel like it was lacking some deeper layers to it. I feel like Emily Wilde has those deeper layers, but it's really easier to get to them because there are 3 books for you to like work on that. Whereas in one book, it's just one and done. It's hard to get to those layers. So, anyways, like I said, it was the right book at the right time. I liked it. 3 stars. After Heather Fawcett, I read ACOTAR for the first time ever. And if you didn't see this, I have some shorts on all of my socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, that is basically going through my reactions as I read ACOTAR for the first time ever. So go check those out. I know this is a cult classic at this point. I know there is a rabid fan base for this, so I was really scared to start this series. I was really worried I was going to hate it. And I'm going to say the first like 10% of this book, I was like, oh boy, I don't think I'm going to like this. But then something switched and I got very addicted to it, but that addiction didn't make up for some issues I had, especially in the ending and things happening too quickly. And yeah, just like some insta love issues. This is again one of those books that I'm going to say I liked it because it was so entertaining and I did get so addicted, but I didn't love it. So I do plan on reading Asimov, A Court of Mist and Fury. I hear that's like the best or most popular book in the series. And I'm going to see if I like that. And if not, I will probably stop reading the series. But if I like it, we'll see. So, anyways, that was Akatar by Sarah J. Maas. It's Maas, right? It's not Moss. Yeah, Sarah J. Maas. All right, we had a slight microphone malfunction, but we fixed it and we are steaming ahead. The next book I read was Authority by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the second book in the Southern Reach Trilogy, meaning the book after Annihilation, which, if you recall, was a 5-star book this year. So this book takes a whole different spin on what's happening. You get a whole different perspective, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And you think there's going to be a lot of answers coming in this book, but there's also a lot of new questions and a lot of old questions that go unanswered. So let's just say it leaves room for the third book. So because this was just kind of different. I liked this, but I didn't love it. We can breeze past this next book. I DNF'd A Guardian and a Thief. It was the wrong book at the wrong time. It was way too heavy for me, so I had to put it down. And so I swapped over to Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. There is something so cozy to me about classic books. And I think that's because as a kid, I read a weird amount of classic novels. And so that like long-winded writing style, it just soothes me in a way that not a lot of books do. So anyways, while this book was short and not too earth-shattering for me, I would say I liked it, but I didn't love it. But it was really cozy and a really good book for me at the moment. After that, I had never heard of Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King, but I went on a little bookish day with a friend. We went to this book cafe event and we went book shopping. But I picked up this book. It's really short. It had some cool illustrations in it, and it's just early 1980s Stephen King. It's full of gore. It is not a lot of depth. I mean, it's really short. It is very short. And so there wasn't a lot to love about it, but I did like it. It was entertaining. And because you can read it in one sitting, I think it is a great book to pick up on Halloween Day and get a little gory horror going. So I recommend you read that on Halloween. It is a fun little gory Stephen King book. After that, I read American Fantasy by Emma Straub, which I was so excited to read. This was a new release this year that I requested from Netgalley. I did not get an ARC for it. I was rejected, but I loved the synopsis. It is modern day, following a 50-year-old woman who goes on this cruise that features a boy band from the 90s. So the boy band themselves are also in their 50s. And I immediately thought of NSYNC. That is my boy band of choice. But you could read this as if it were the Backstreet Boys, even though it clearly says it's not the Backstreet Boys. I'll say that. I personally think this was written with New Kids on the Block in mind, but I still like to read it as if it were NSYNC because, just to be on a boy band cruise with Lance Bass would just make my life. But I thought this was going to be a really lighthearted, cheesy romance, and it is so much more than that. It is about reawakening in your like midlife crisis and refinding yourself and refusing to settle and kind of throwing away these expectations that you have had for yourself and that society has put on you. And you've like settled into a certain career and settled into a relationship that maybe isn't working for you, and you finally decide that basically life is too short and you are just going to live for yourself And if that means you are chasing a boy band on a cruise ship 20 years after their hype, I mean, so be it. I really appreciate that this had so much depth. I loved this book. This was 4 stars. I do think if you're a hardcore romance fan, this is not going to suit you. I think that it maybe leads people astray into reading it thinking they're going to get that typical romance, and it disappoints them, which is how I assume there are so many negative reviews on Goodreads, because I'm like, I love this book, but it is not what I expected, so maybe that is why other people aren't enjoying it as much. Next up, I read Acceptance by Jeff Vandermeer, which is the 3rd book in that Southern Reach trilogy, and I was like, okay, we're finally going to get the answers. We're finally going to get them. And maybe Jeff Vandermeer is just so smart and he gave us most of the answers, or I'm just kind of dumb. It could be both. I like to think I have good reading comprehension, but there was something about this book and this whole trilogy that is just so over my head. I had to end up going down a Reddit rabbit hole reading fan theories, and I finally have a good concept of what I think this whole trilogy was about, but I didn't get that from reading the book. I was just like brain melted, but in a good way. I enjoyed my brain melting. So I liked Acceptance. I didn't love it. And I just have to say, if you want to just read Annihilation, you can do that. But I did like the whole series. So that finally leaves us with Strange Houses by Uketsu. I did read Strange Pictures earlier this year, and that was a 5-star book for me, mostly for entertainment, but it was just so beyond anything I'd ever read before that it just scratched this itch. This one was different. This one like takes this concept, this over the top concept, and runs with it. And I was just sitting there the whole book like, really? Really? We're doing this? Really? But it was still bingeable. I read it in one day, but the ending did get kind of convoluted to the point where I kind of didn't understand what was going on. Maybe my brain was still a little bit melted from Jeff Vandermeer. I don't know. But anyways, I liked this book. I didn't love it. Now, because of that microphone issue I mentioned, you have a little spoiler here for something I filmed and am refilming right now. But the standout of the year that I chose, I moved it up from my 5-star category. It is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. I think Annihilation stands out. I think Ring Shout stands out. I also think American Fantasy in the 4-star category stands out because it just surpassed all of my expectations. But if we are going to pick one, which wasn't necessarily my goal, but I can say there is one standout, and that is The Reformatory. This book challenged me so hard. I wanted to DNF it so many times because it was so heavy for me. And the ending, oh, there's so many good and hard things about it. I will say it, like, there are parts of it that make me just really pessimistic about like our world and our society right now, but there are also parts of it that give me hope, and we're hopeful. So it's just such a beautiful book, and if I haven't convinced you to read it yet, I need you to go look up other reviews and find somebody who will convince you to read it, because it is just that good. Okay, that wraps everything up. Those were the 27 books I read this year, with my big standout being The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. Anyways, thank you for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what you think is an unpopular opinion, what do you agree with me on, and please let me know what is your standout book of 2026 so far, and please convince me to read it, because I am always looking for new books to read. So once again, thank you, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.